Greetings. Welcome to Six Sigma. Uh, there are a series of 6 videos, of which this first one will be an overview of the entire process of Six Sigma, a little about the history of it and the certifications that go with it as well. And then the other 5 videos will be the actual method itself, and that is define, measure, analyze, improve, control. Those 5. So without delay, we'll get started. Six Sigma has really stood the test of time in terms of its method of continuous improvement within an organization. Typically, it's used for large organizations that have data sets. It is a well seated in science. It actually stems from the scientific methodology. The method is in a specific sequence, so it organizes your project, and it starts out with define, then goes to measure, then goes to analyze, and then goes to improve or implement, and then finally control. That is really an outgrowth of the scientific methodology, which is an introduction, a lit review, methods, analysis, findings, discussion, and future research. So you can see the similarity between the two. And so this is why Six Sigma works, is because it has worked in science for better than 100 years. Scientists have been gathering data to support a hypothesis and using statistical methods in order to do that. Well, why not do that in the business? Because it has been working. In fact, it's the foundation of a lot of what we know about ourselves and our planet and beyond. And so this is really the inception of Six Sigma. Like Lean, Six Sigma does use a lot of displays of quantitative information. So familiarity with software is essential to be able to engage in a Six Sigma project. Typically for this kind of course, which is not a black belt, but is an introduction to Six Sigma, more at the yellow belt kind of level, Excel is the home base for doing the analysis. Also the charts, the run charts, and trying to muster up as much as you can about the display of quantitative information, and being able to look at that information through a different kind of lens, it on paper rather than walking around your operations. So Six Sigma really does stem from science, and at the beginning of the industrial age, in fact, there were 2 different classifications of management, so to speak, and working in organizations, the study of the firm. One was industrial psychology and one was industrial engineering. And so Six Sigma really does come from those 2 areas. As industrial psychology and industrial engineering started to grow, scientific management became more and more prevalent with the Hawthorne studies, time studies, things like that. And then there was, during the 80s especially, there were hundreds of authors all claiming to be experts in some type of area of continuous improvement. All kinds of, whether it's quality circles or re-engineering, and it goes on and on and on. Well, Six Sigma and Lean have really stood the test of time. Most of those have fallen by the wayside because they were seated in something that was not as sound as Six Sigma. The Six Sigma certification levels are varied. There's a white belt. This is for individuals to become certified. White belt, and that is typically a couple of hours. It just really goes into what is Six Sigma, kind of what you'll get right now. And then there's a yellow belt where you actually dig in a little deeper and look at some examples of Six Sigma and the results of those examples or those actual improvement projects. And then there is the green belt where you actually engage in a real project yourself as a learner. That can be 2 or 3 days worth of training. It has a very specific curriculum, and there's a test at the end, and there's a project, small project to engage in. No real financial value to that project. Then you really move quite a bit up the ladder into black belt. And black belt is, if it's given by a reputable organization, training like American Society for Quality or similar, typically these will be really substantial financial returns on the investment of engaging in a project of which you have to roll out the Six Sigma project and get buy-in from your peers, your bosses, and people who work for you, and you're really digging in to this organization in order to make this improvement. So it has to have some really significant financial kind of return on it. Some organizations it has to be $200,000, some it's $250,000, some it's less. Of course, if it's a smaller organization, it's a function of size, right? And so, and then finally, there is the Grand Master Black Belt, and that's the person who teaches the Black Belt. And this is like a statistical wizard. They are highly sought after, but you have to be a Black Belt first before you can go into a Grand Master Black Belt. So those are the classifications of certification for individuals when they engage in the training in this way. Our course is an overview of Six Sigma. It is an academic course for credit, and so there are some requirements that are paper and some tests, and the paper has to be a full-blown academic paper using the American Psychology, American Association of Psychology, APA methods. So that's kind of the background. The most essential part of any Six Sigma project is the data, right? It's the analysis. And so digging up some kind of data set is essential. And I know a lot of the students who are going to be in this class may not work. So Black Belt is kind of off the table. But data is essential. You have to do some kind of analysis because, again, it's define, measure. So the measures are the units of measure that you're going to be analyzing. Analyze, and I'll go into that in more detail, of course. And then the results of that analysis, actually doing something with that, which would be improve or implement. And then finally, how do you control to make sure it stays that way until you change it, of course, deliberately. So I'll go into some detail on each one of those sections, and I think we'll have a good time in this course, and I'd also encourage you to contact the instructor immediately, and I like to have a phone call if it's me, so we can talk about the possibilities of data, what is available, and if there's none available, to get you some data so that we can complete a quasi kind of Six Sigma project, take it all the way through to completion. At the end, you have to present that project, right? And that project is a paper, and it is also a presentation. And so putting all of that together is really the most important element in this course. So hopefully we'll be working together, or you'll be working with another instructor to follow through on these areas of Six Sigma. Thank you.